As you probably know that you can expose your APIs using HTTP trigger Azure functions. And if you're exposing these, especially to the external consumers, you obviously have to put on some sort of a security layer. Either it's Auth2 or OpenID Connect or your API keys. You have to make the channel secure. We will see what are different ways to making the functions app secure. The second scenario comes in where you expose your function app, but I've seen most of the times you try to expose them behind some sort of an API gateway, which in case of Azure is API management. In that case, we obviously have to make API management call secure as well. And again, API management comes up with a lot of out-of-the-box security mechanisms. What I'm talking about basically is if your app API is exposed via your API management, then the app which is going to call that API has to call it via a secure mechanism. So that number one will when we do the actual demo, we'll see what are different ways to make this number one channel secure. And secondly, when API management is going to call your function app internally, what are different ways of securing that and how API management can securely call your function app. Let's go back to the demo. This is a simple function app that I've created. It's I haven't created any out of the box custom code in this. It's just the whatever came from the template. So you can see in that function, in the HTTP trigger attribute, there is this enum passing authorization level. And right now I passed anonymous here. So let's try to call it. I have already deployed published this on Azure, and this is the URL. If I go back to portal over here, you can see that the secure function new is already deployed over here. And that URL I actually put in the Postman. So this is the URL of the API that I deployed, and I'm passing in the body name as my name. And I'm gonna call it. Let's see what happens. So 200, and the body is actually returning hello Tahir. So I didn't pass anything. If we go back to the headers, in the request headers, there is only content type application JSON. There is nothing else, which means the function app is anonymous. Now, how do we secure it? There are simple ways where you can put on the authorization level. So if I go down here, you can see admin, anonymous, function, system, and user. So admin and system are primarily on the host level, and we'll see what the host is. So host basically is in your function app, there are several functions that you have. So if you make it admin level, it means that all the functions within that function app can be accessed by the host key. And where do we get the host key? We'll see that on the portal. But what we're going to discuss today specifically is the function. So function means that it's at a granular level, at a function level, but not on the whole function app. So if in this particular function app I have 2, 3, 4 functions, every function will have a different function key. So it's kind of API key, but at the function level. So this secure function will have a key associated with it. If I go back to the portal, let's publish this. I'll put it, so I've done that, and let's publish it. And in the meanwhile, while it's being published in the background, we will go back here and I will show you. So this is my function, secure function new, right? If I go back to the setting, function app setting, so this is the function app level setting. So you'll see the host keys over here. You can see 2 host keys over here. One is default and one is master. I can create more keys as well. But this is kind of a master key, which means every function within that function app can be accessed by that host key. If I've set the authorization level to admin. But if I go down to my function, so this is the secure function that I showed you in the Visual Studio. If I go here, and if I go to its settings, you can see apart from the host key, which is the same as we saw on the function app level, there is this function key as well. So that's at the function level, which means this is only specific to this function. So what I can do, if I click on show, you can see the key over here, right? So this is something that I can pass into the API while calling it, and it will allow me to call the API, otherwise it will fail. So we'll see that if I go back to Illustrator, it's still publishing. I'll just pause the video here and come back once it's published. Okay, so the app is now published, and if I try to call the API with the same body and no headers passed, you can see it gives me 401 unauthorized error. The reason is it's expecting the function key now, but how do we pass the function key? Let's go back to the portal. So this function key, I'm going to copy this function key. Now, there are two ways to pass the function key. One way is a simple one, but less secure way is that in the query string of the URL, you can pass code equal to your function key. Let's call it. So you can see 200, okay, I got now, and I got the response as well. The other way, if you don't want to do that, and the better way is that you copy the function key and you go to the header, the request header, we have X functions key, and I'll pass it there. All right, let's call it again. See, 200. So you can pass it in the headers. So that's how you pass in the function key. And obviously, if it was at the host level, then you have to pass the host key. And then all the functions within the function app, you can call through that host key. Now that's at the function level. Now let's see how we can expose this behind the API management, and how do we pass this function key through API management. So I'll quickly go there. Okay, so coming back to the API management. So I've already created one API management application in my Azure. And if I go down to APIs, I've already imported the function app that we created into my functions. So if you see here in the backend URL, this is the same URL of a secure function new that we just tested in our Postman. So I'll go back here, and now if I try to call it, I can call it through here. I can come to test, and let's try to test it out. Let's put the body, same body over here. And let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see it's giving us 401 error because obviously API management doesn't know about the X function and the function key. So how do we add the function key while the API management tries to call the function? Obviously, we saw in the Postman that we can add it as a header. So one option is that we go here and, or we go back. The easiest way is we go back to the design, and then we add a policy. So we have to set header, and in the header, functions key, and I will pass the function key. I'll go back, maybe here, get the function key, and put the same function key over here, value. Okay, now it has the function key. Now when it will call, what it will do, if we go back to the policies, it's going to set the header as X functions key and then pass the value. It means every time we call it the API management URL, before calling the app, it will add that header. Let's see if that works. I'll go back to the test again. Over here, I'll pass the body again. Same body. Down, pass it here. Let's see what happens. Okay, you can see 200 now. Right? Now, coming back, obviously, you might see that we are exposing the API key directly over here, but there are several ways. You can automate your whole API management, and then you can get the key from your keyboard. So you can obviously automate. There are several ways to, so that you don't expose your API keys directly over here. That way you can, or at runtime, you can get it from your keyboard and then merge it over here. So that you can do. Now that's, you have secured one channel. If you go back to my presentation, you have secured this channel now. What about this channel? Let's get back to API management and see what are different ways that it provides. Now, if I go back to the settings of my API, if I go down in this area, there are two ways. One is subscription, and the other one is the security header over here. Now, if your API is going to be consumed by the third-party consumers, which might be your users, then you usually will go with for the auth2 or the OpenID Connect. But if your API is going to be exposed to your third-party partners, your maybe suppliers or other organizations, then maybe best way to go for that is through your API keys. How does the API key gets managed in the API management is through the subscriptions. So if I go down over here, right now I uncheck the subscriptions. So if I get the URL of this, or maybe we go back to the test and we get the key from the URL from here. If I get the URL from here and call it in my Postman, which I've already done, go back to the body and then try to pass it. You can see it's giving me 200. So all good. I haven't passed anything in the body, in the headers. So all good. The reason is I unchecked the subscription key in the API. So that's fine. Now to secure it, one way is subscription. So how the subscription works is that basically you assign your APIs to products, and that every product has a subscription, or even your APIs also have subscription. And that subscription, you add people, you add applications, you add users, or you can use the subscription key for the consumers to directly call it. That way, you segregate your API accesses in subscriptions. So it kind of act like API keys. So if you go down over here, I will now do this. So I now said that I need subscription key is required to call this API. If I save it and get back to my Postman, let's call it again. So you can see 401, it's not allowing us because now it requires subscription key. Now, how do we pass subscription key? We'll get this, this header. And again, you can pass it as a query parameter as well, but let's go with the header. I'll go back here and I'll add this at the header. Where do we get the subscription key? Now, let's get back and see how do we get the subscription key. If I go to the products over here or subscription for simplicity, this is the master level subscription key or the primary subscription key that we have, and that's assigned based on the product level. So this is the service level, which means it's like a parent level. So if we use this one, all the APIs here can access it. So if I go down here and I show the keys and I copy that key and I go back to the Postman and I pass the key over here. So you see, it's able to access it now because we've passed the subscription key now here. So then again, that subscription key is the primary key. You can have secondary subscription key, and then you can have specific subscription key to that particular API. How do you do that? If we go back in the products, now what I can do is I can add a product. So let's say we say it's our secure demo product. So a product can have multiple set of APIs, and then you can handle your subscription at product level. So I've done that, and demo, some subscription here. And do you require subscription for this product? Yes, we do. We need APIs. I'll just select that API over here. So now this product has that API. Or in other words, that API belongs to this product now. If I go to this product, you can see the subscriptions over here, right? And if I click on that, that product has its own subscription now. And you can add as many subscriptions as you want. And every subscription, you can control who has access to that. So if I go down here, you can delete or cancel, and then you can have access control. That way, you can give access to particular application or particular users to have access to that particular API. In this case now, because I have added this here, I can actually get, go back, show this particular subscription key I can use instead of using the master key. So if I put this one over here, I'll be able to access it through that, right? So with that, we'll just wrap up the sessions. Again, come back to the presentation. So there are two different levels where we put the security. One, obviously, when your function, when your API management calls the function app, we pass the function key, X function key in the header. So that way you cannot call the function key anonymously. The second way is the API management way. In this case, we use subscription key, but you can use auth2 or OpenID Connect as we saw in the API management. So in case of subscription key, you assign your API to a particular product, and then you assign a subscription. And then that subscription key, you can pass it in the header, and then you can access your API. Thank you very much.